9, and it happens to be Monday, July 20th, 2026. I'm so glad to be with you today. Today, we're going to be talking about growth. Now, of course, where I live, it is currently the summer season. My wife, this past spring, she asked me to go and put some more dirt in this special area which we have for our vegetable garden. And so she, of course, planted radishes, she planted potatoes, peas, and lettuce and other good things. And now we are, of course, enjoying the produce that, of course, my wife made happen. The other day, for example, my daughter goes out into our lettuce area, cuts off the lettuce, and we have a wonderful salad. Well, growth isn't an outcome of something that you, of course, earn, but it is something that actually has to do with going beyond your comfort zone into discomfort. Let me explain. For example, I had to go to a local area where we're able to get topsoil. And what I had to do, I have a 1965 GMC truck. What I had to do twice in that time period was I had to go over and I had to shovel a whole bunch of dirt into the back of my truck. And then I had to, take my truck, drive over to the area of the vegetable patch, and also as well to a box that I had built for flowers. And I had to, of course, take all that soil and put it by hand into these two areas. That was hard work. But I understood that if you're going to have growth in life, it's going to be uncomfortable. One person said, of course, I prayed for growth, didn't realizing that, of course, that it would come through discomfort, that it would come through being challenged. Everybody loves, of course, to have the mountaintop experience. When I was younger, I was a kind of a mountain climber. I in particular remember climbing many of the mountains around Waterton and Banff and the Kananaskis. And then when I lived in British Columbia, one of my favorite things, of course, was climbing mountains in British Columbia. Well, I want to tell you something. Climbing a mountain is really hard work. I remember this one particular time, and this is kind of the last time that I climbed mountains with the zeal that I had when I was younger. I was climbing the side of what they call the Bear Paw Mountain. That is a mountain just above Waterton town site in Waterton National Park, which is also on the Canadian American border with Glacier National Park. So I'm scurrying up. I said to my wife, you guys, sit down here and I'll climb the mountain and I will come back. Well, I scaled that mountain. I was climbing the mountain with two other guys. And this is what happened. We were about 150 feet from the top of that mountain. The mountain was about 10,000 feet high. And we were going up the side of this cliff. And I was climbing up this cliff and I looked down. On one side was a cliff going down about 2,000 feet. And the cliff that we were climbing was over 1,000 feet high. And I looked down and I looked and saw my wife down at the bottom there and my two little kids running around. One at the time was about 5 and the other one was about 3. And all of a sudden it hit me. What are you doing up here? You are the father of 2 children. They are down there and you're climbing up this mountain. One false step and you're gone. And what are they going to do? And I thought to myself, what am I doing? And it was getting very, very dangerous. And one of the other guys, I said, guys, I have a family down there. I am going to go down. And the other guy who was with me, he said, I'm thinking the same thing. He says, I don't have a family. What in heaven's name am I doing up here? So we gingerly went down the side of the cliff. And it was only then that I realized how dangerous this particular situation really was. Well, when I come down from the bottom, I grabbed my two little children. And it's interesting that one of those children is actually visiting me today. His name is Robert. And it's interesting that he has a almost 17-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old daughter as well. And one of those daughters is actually visiting me right now. But it was then that I realized that, growth can be both, of course, dangerous and a little scary. It's easy to enjoy the mountaintop experience, but it's not so easy when you find yourself in the valley, when you find yourself moving past your comfort zone, when you are risking, and it takes real risk. One of the things that I love to watch is videos. And I was watching this one particular video about entrepreneurship. You see, many people, of course, look at those who have earned wealth in the, by investing, by taking risk, by going out there and testing the market. And when they are successful, people expect those people to give that wealth away freely. Give it to people who are not necessarily entitled to it. But that is, of course, the thought of socialism and communism. They say we're going to redistribute the wealth. They forget that there were people out there who took a risk. There were people out there who said, I don't want to just be an employee. I want to be an employee. I want to, not just have wealth for myself, but wealth for others as well. And these people, instead of being hated, should be applauded because they have taken the risk. They have gone beyond their comfort zone. They have wanted to make something of themselves. And in that process, they have also elevated other people. That should be applauded. That should not be, put down. So you see, if you're going to have growth in your life, you're going to have to take some risks. It means that you're going to have to, of course, go beyond your comfort zone. It means that you're going to have to work. You're going to have to push your past what feels easy. Lots of people take the easy path. Many people are like water. Water always takes the path of least resistance. Recently, of course, we've had some really fierce rainstorms in the province of Alberta. And my daughter, for example, she had, of course, water go into her basement. And we've been in the process, of course, of cleaning that up. My sister-in-law recently, of course, one of the big storms that they had in Edmonton, and Edmonton has literally been battered by storms, she has been dealing with water in her basement. And in that process, she discovered she had a crack in the basement of her home. Now, she has an older home like we do. But fortunately, our home doesn't have that particular problem. But my daughter discovered that she had that problem. And this week, we have to have a foundation company come in and fix the foundation. My sister-in-law has that same problem. None of those things were discovered because in Alberta for the last 10 years, we've been in kind of a drought situation. But in the month of June, we had more rain in 1 month than we usually get in 1 year. And of course, that has showing some major problems. But it has been very uncomfortable. And when you have the storms of life, what you build your life on is going to be shown. If you build your life on a solid rock, if you build your life on, for example, a firm foundation, your house will not be shaken. It was interesting that 2 nights ago, for example, We had a windstorm in our community. The wind all of a sudden began to blow, and it was interesting that yesterday or last night, my wife comes home to me and she says, "Did you put a ladder up on the side of our daughter's house?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "We were cleaning the gutters." She said, "Well, that ladder fell down and broke the downspout of the eaves trough." And so I walked over, and last night my son and we had to fix the downspout of my daughter's house because of the fact that I had left a ladder up there to clean the eaves trough, and the ladder fell over and broke the downspout. So I had to repair something that I had caused. Well, you see, things are not always easy. The windstorms of life happen. Rainstorms of life happen. And if you have not, done the right thing, if you have not, done the work before, guess what? It can literally shake what's going on in your house. There was a major tornado that hit a small community just outside of Rocky Mountain House, a place called Leslieville. And over 50 homes were damaged by this tornado that touched down. Now, that doesn't happen very often in Canada. It happens a lot more in Tornado Alley in the United States. But it just shows us that we need to be aware that the storms of life come, and what we have done to, prepare ourselves, but also as well, be ready. And the firm foundation of our life, of course, is very, very important. Now, you're not going to have any growth if you don't have any challenge. If you won't have, you'll never find out what kind of person you really are until something happens and you have to respond. For example, if you are, driving an automobile and you find all of a sudden you're sitting yourself on the side of the road, many people, of course, today will phone AMA or CAA or some organization to come and get them. And that's okay. But also, as well, let's say you have a flat tire. Well, one of the interesting things is you can either change the tire yourself, which is a growth experience, or you can call, of course, a tow truck and have them change it, and it'll cost you money. Either way, there is going to be some inconvenience, and either way, there's going to be some growth. Either way, there's going to be a cost in associated with it, whether it is your own time or, of course, someone else's time where you have to spend money. Growth always happens when you find yourself in a situation where you have to react, where you have to do something. You see, when my wife came home last night and told me about how the ladder had fallen and the downspout was off, I knew that if I didn't fix that right away, in the forecast, there has been, of course, rain. And if that downspout isn't fixed, then water will go directly into my daughter's basement and we'll have more problems. So I went over there and I fixed the downspout. It didn't take me very long, number one, because I've done it before, and number two, because I had help this time. Many times I will end up doing things by myself, but because my son was there, he was able to help me do the job quickly, which is also a wonderful lesson as well. When you find yourself in those difficult times, I have discovered that many, many times people will come along and will actually help you. I'll share one more story with you about growth. Years ago, I borrowed, I should say, a 1969 GMC 1500 truck. It was lent to me by a friend because my car had broken down. And they said, listen, until you get your car fixed, you can borrow this truck. So I did. And I drove from that small town in, of course, Alberta to Edmonton, where I was going to school. Now, the problem was in those days, I was not savvy as I am today concerning, of course, fixing automobiles. So I drive to my school and I get up and get out of the truck, go into the school, do my classes, and then come back out. And as I was coming back, I, of course, went into the truck, turned on the key, and nothing happened. Well, I knew enough that if I popped the hood, maybe I could see what was going on. So here I am. I popped the hood. I'm looking underneath the hood at what was going on. I didn't know what I was looking for. And all of a sudden, there was a knock on the hood. And this guy looks at me and says, "Is there something wrong?" I said, "Yeah, the truck doesn't start." He says, "Well, let me look." All of a sudden, he wiggles the battery post. He says, "It's loose." That's your problem. Do you have a crescent wrench? Do you have an adjustable wrench? He says, "I can fix it right away." So I happen to have an adjustable crescent wrench, which everybody should have in their automobile. I said, "Yeah, I do." And so he took that adjustable crescent wrench and he very quickly adjusted to the size of the nut. He tightened up the nut. He says, "Now try it." So I did. Instantaneously, it started. In that moment, I learned that if you don't have your battery cables tightened, you can actually have your vehicle not start. This spring, for example, I was having trouble with a brand new battery. I would start the truck and it would start every time. And then after I drove the truck around, it would stop and it wouldn't work. Well, the simple fact was I was blaming the battery, not recognizing that the battery cable wasn't, of course, on as tight as it was. A simple mistake. You would think after all these years that I would know that. The simple fact is, how did I learn that, if your vehicle doesn't start, the first thing you always check is the battery cable, because 9 times out of 10, that's where the problem is. So, started it up, thanked him for the experience, but it was an uncomfortable situation at the time because the simple fact is I didn't know what was going on. But because of that experience and because that person came along and helped me, I learned something that day. I'd been staring at the underneath the hood of the truck for about 5 minutes. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with this truck? This guy comes along and helps me. And I learned a very valuable lesson. And I also, a year later, we started working at the same place. And this fella became a very good friend. Well, you never know. You can get a good friend out of a difficult experience. And that's what growth is all about. It's uncomfortable to grow. It's uncomfortable to take a risk, but the rewards and the benefits can definitely outweigh any discomfort and any risk that you take. Because when you get on the other side, Elon Musk is a perfect example of an individual who took a risk. They say that he just became the first trillionaire. Well, Elon Musk grew up in a family where his dad was a successful businessman. But he didn't want to just inherit, of course, the family money. He wanted to make a difference. And he has made a difference. He, of course, is now the richest man in the world. And he works very, very hard for what he has. And in turn, because of all that he does, it has been said that because of his involvement in all the companies that he's involved, both direct and indirect jobs, he employs over 1 million people. Now, he could have said, I'm going to just sit on the family money, but he didn't do that. He decided to take a risk. He decided that he was going to make a difference, and he has. And so you can decide to just sit on the old situation, or you can take a risk. Growth always comes when you are, of course, in a place of discomfort, in a place of risk. But I want to tell you something. On the other side, you'll be so glad that you did. You will never have a garden unless, of course, you take and do all the work. Years ago, my wife, when we were living on our farm, she says, I want to have a garden. I said, do you want a small garden or do you want a big garden? She says, I want a big garden. Well, I want to tell you something. To have that big garden, and it was a big garden, it was about 120 feet by about 100 feet. And fortunately, I had a rototiller, which of course made the work easier. When my parents were growing up, they had a large garden, but my dad did all the work with a shovel and with a fork. And so I was so glad that I had that rototiller that I could go in between the rows and take care of all the weeds. But I want to tell you something. When you have a big garden, there's lots of weeds. Just the other day, for example, in that little garden that we have next to the house, I had to actually go and weed it. I had to take all the weeds out so that those plants would grow. Having a garden or growing things in life is hard work, but the rewards are absolutely wonderful. The other night, when we had, a salad from our own lettuce area, it was great, but there was some work involved in it. So I just want to remind you, if you want to have growth in your life, or if you want to earn something and get something of value, it means stepping out of your comfort zone, pushing past the past and what felt easy, and begin to challenge yourself, because that's only when growth happens. So that's my thoughts for you and I today. If you want to grow, it's not going to be easy, but I guarantee that when you get to the other side and look back, you say, I'm not the same person. I'm actually a better person. I know more. I understand that I have become more resourceful. I've become smarter. I've become more experienced, and I can take that experience and I can take that growth and use it to help others, because that's also what growth is all about. It's not just so that you grow, but that you can actually to say to someone else, hey, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Maybe just being a role model, just being a mentor, just being an example could help somebody and make their situation just a little bit lighter. That's my thought for you today. Well, if you like what you've been hearing and seeing, you can always press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I want to thank all the people who have been subscribing and have been watching my YouTube channel. I thank you for doing that. Also, as well, if you, of course, would check out my daily YouTube shorts. Did a whole bunch of them yesterday, did a bunch of them this morning, and I'm going to be posting them very shortly. They are simply short videos under 1 minute that gives one or two thoughts that I hope will inspire and will also help you to grow and become a better person. So my name is Robert Dean Steele. Thank you for spending time with me. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a great and godly day.